Hello everyone, welcome back to the Zekko football channel. Manchester United are on fire, and I don't mean that as a joke. Look, they're on fire here, they're on fire off the pitch, they're on fire on the pitch. Genuinely, it's not looking good. And no, I don't mean on fire on the pitch as if they're playing well. It's not the good fire, it's the bad fire, okay? The bad fire. And that's where we come in. Today we're going to be having a look at certain scenarios and trying to figure out what's wrong with Manchester United. If you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you smash that like button, and turn on those notifications. And now it's time to discuss what's wrong with Manchester United. Let's start with the game that they had against Wolverhampton Wanderers. They won this game by 1-0, and it was by the skin of their teeth. Wolves should have had a penalty and arguably should have scored a couple of other goals. So it wasn't down to defending that they won this game, and I'd actually go as far as to say that Manchester United are the worst defending side that I've seen in the Premier League this season. They are absolutely atrocious. But here is the first image that we're going to look at. This is in the Wolves corner. They've just tried to play out their pressing. This is something that Erik ten Hag, I think, is trying to get into this Manchester United side. The idea of pressing, the counter press to be able to turn over and be closer to goal. I think it's extremely important, and it's something that he's really trying to instill in this side. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has pushed up high. Anthony's out on this right-hand side. Mason Mount has just attempted to press, and Marcus Rashford is going to follow up. However, the player that I really want to note here is Casemiro. Casemiro is pushed so far up, and considering his lack of movement, his lack of ability in making backwards runs and recovery runs, it's astonishing to me that he is here. It's astonishing, because if for whatever reason, if Wolves manage to get the ball away, if they ever manage to get out of this press, which, spoilers, they do, then Casemiro would be nowhere near the play. And this is exactly what happens. Wolverhampton Wanderers manage to get out of this because the press is not clean enough, it's not quick enough, they don't get to the ball fast enough, and they don't have enough pressure. Lemina has far too much time to be able to recycle the ball out, and Manchester United are running back towards their own goal. Terrible. Image number 2. This is horrific for completely different reasons. Here is your midfield trio. You have Casemiro, you have Mason Mount, and you have Bruno Fernandes. These three are the main players in the midfield. What actually is meant to happen is that Bruno Fernandes is meant to be here, Casemiro should be here, and they should be making a lopsided diamond. Instead, it's something of a two-man midfield at the moment, with Mason Mount playing the central attacking midfield role. We have the Wolverhampton Wanderers player here with the ball, and he's going to play into Matheus Cunha, who's going to be able to spin. Now, one of the main issues that I have with this is that Casemiro is not watching this at all. He's far too focused on the player here, and that means that the onus is on Bruno Fernandes, who does not pick up the player whatsoever. He then spins around, like I've just mentioned, and it means that Manchester United are yet again on the back foot. There is no defensive cover player here. There is no awareness from Mason Mount, who's actually currently looking this way. There is no actual reliance on any kind of defensive cohesion, and this indicates to me that it's a communication issue. It's either a communication issue or some kind of tactical setup in the build-up when they're preparing for matches, because this is atrocious. To be able to play through a midfield like this with one simple pass and then 1-1-2 is awful. The lines are far too wide. Casemiro is far too far away from Bruno Fernandes. He's far too far away from Mason Mount for a team that is meant to be defending. And this is not a lot of intricate play. It's not done at a crazy pace. Manchester United should be dealing with this in their sleep. And then you have the issue of Luke Shaw, who's being pushed up. This alleviates a lot of space in behind because Alejandro Garnacho is not going to be making up that run. And it just leaves it so open and so easy for Wolverhampton Wanderers to play through. Image number 3 now. Oh, we're not done. No. We have so much more to go through. This is Casemiro here. Wolves players are going this way. The Wolves player currently has the ball, and he's about to drive through the heart of this Manchester United midfield. Why, I hear you ask? Well, because it's open to him, and it's completely allowed. This is Casemiro. Now, I have been hearing a lot of complaints about the Manchester United system and them not protecting Casemiro. However, when Casemiro decides to dive into challenges like that, it's very difficult to back him up. I don't think he wants to do any recovery runs. I don't think he wants to spin him behind. He's 31 years old, and that means that he's starting to feel his legs. He was previously in a Real Madrid team that kept the ball a lot, and they had the ability to really retain possession, allowing him to almost rest, if you will, while they had the ball. At this current point in time, Manchester United are not a possession-based team, which means they need other players to be able to press that little bit further. They need to run a little bit more to be able to get the same amount of pressure that they need. Casemiro has decided to dive into this challenge. Mason Mount has not made the challenge at all. Bruno Fernandes is about to run into the pitch, but you can't see that at the moment. Rafa Varane is trying to hold the higher line to be able to help with Casemiro because he's decided to go in. And this is the exact issue. The communication is not there. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's here and Casemiro has decided to start pressing. Fine, that's okay. The press is alright, but you need to have communication with the rest of your side, a la Liverpool, a la Man City, or a Barcelona at some point, to be able to converge on this player here to make sure that he cannot turn. The moment he turns, 3 of these Manchester United players are dead. And it's the decision of Casemiro to be able to go into this space that causes all of this to happen. If he sits here, nothing happens. You delay the attack. Other players get back. It's Casemiro's willingness to be able to go into challenges that I think is actually causing Manchester United quite a lot of problems, along with everything else. This is just one of the examples that I think that he is not helping the side as much as he could. Last one from the Wolves game. This is Casemiro in this central defensive midfield position. Mason Mount is here, and we have Bruno Fernandes here. So these are your 3 midfield players. Bruno arguably should be either here or here, swapping with Mount, but that's fine. The Manchester United team are running back towards their own goal because Wolves have a transition which is going to play through them. Okay, that's all right. They're in a fairly decent defensive position. However, Casemiro decides to make a change. He decides to engage. Now this is crucial. This almost capitulates the entire Manchester United defence anyway. Mason Mount is not getting to this ball before he starts to go on his run. And that means that the decision for Casemiro to run into this player is ridiculous. Genuinely. He needs to shuffle back, make sure that the defence is organised, and then go again. But I think it's the integration of a new press, of a new intensity that is causing him to want to go in. And Mason Mount is never going to get there. Bruno Fernandes is not going to get there either, which means the midfield is completely open yet again. And it's through this decision making that is continuously causing Manchester United problem after problem after problem. He is the last line of the defence in the midfield. The last line. Mason Mount is not getting there. Garnacho is not getting there. Bruno's not getting there. He's the last line. The moment he starts going, the defence is completely wide open. It's a horrendous decision. I'm not having a go at Casemiro because I don't think it's his fault, per se. But I think decision making is an incredibly important part of the game. Mason Mount isn't doing enough. Bruno isn't doing enough to try and protect them from this play through the middle of the pitch. But his decision after the fact to want to go and engage is something that is going to leave United open later on. It's this decision making and this lack of communication that is leading to so many chances falling against United. When you have a side that is trying to transition into something else, there needs to be a bit of patience and an expectancy that some things might not go the way that you expect in the first part of the season. However, this is quite catastrophic. Casemiro is far too deep from anyone else, and really when you think about the way that Manchester United want to go forwards, they want to play forwards with a high line. This back four needs to be further up the pitch. Casemiro needs to be higher up, and then you've got the likes of Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes to try and press forwards. The issue is that I don't think Casemiro has anywhere near the physicality nor the stamina to be able to be that sole central defensive midfielder to try and help out Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount. Garnacho and Anthony don't exactly have the timings for a press, and Marcus Rashford isn't exactly the most pressing player either, which means that when Mason Mount goes forwards and when Bruno goes forwards, it leaves a massive gap and a massive hole. This is then beaten by the fact that they don't time it well enough, they don't have enough pressure on a certain side, and then the press falls down. When the press falls, Casemiro more often than not ends up gambling and losing out in a 1v1 duel, and that means your back four is completely exposed. This happens time after time after time again, and they need to do one of two things. They need to either drop Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes a little bit lower and then make the press something of a mid-press, or they need to scrap the press entirely, meaning that they need to play as a solid unit. Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes can still half press in certain and tight scenarios, but they can't be going forwards with the rest of the forwards to be able to press like they have been previously, because it just doesn't work. Sometimes, yes, they get there, but Casemiro doesn't have the fluctuation or the flexibility to be able to back them up, and that means that generally, more often than not, you're going to have a massive scenario where Casemiro is left isolated, and more often than not he's going to be either played around or played through. It's not good enough, and frankly the tactical flexibility in Manchester United isn't there, and that's one of the reasons why they're so terrible. And I don't see an easy fix, especially if Casemiro is their main central defensive midfielder. They paid the odd 70 million for him. Bruno Fernandes is the captain, and then Mason Mount is the new star signing. I think Mount on his own is a fine addition, but the cohesion between the three of them is non-existent, and perhaps that might be something that changes later on in the season. But at the moment, there's far too many disjointed pieces in this setup, and teams are exploiting it, and they will continue to exploit it until Manchester United have some more time in the training ground to try and make it work out. Terrible, terrible stuff. And now for the Tottenham game. This was horrendous for Manchester United for different reasons. Here is Bruno Fernandes, here is Alejandro Garnacho, this is Mason Mount attempting to make a tackle. And way back here, you can't actually see him on your screen, but here is Casemiro. Now, the difference and the distance between these two is absolutely horrendous. It needs to be so much shorter. If you're going to play a high line, you've got to play the high line. You can't have so many people pushing forwards and so many people behind. It doesn't work. There is going to be too much of a gap, and the counter is always going to be on, as it is right here. Speaking of counter, here is another counter. This is James Maddison playing the ball through, and as you can see, Casemiro is off your screen yet again. This is Martinez, this is Varane, this is Wan-Bissaka, and this is Luke Shaw running back towards their own goal because the counter is on. Mason Mount is the only player in any kind of defensive position to try and make some kind of stop, which means that Tottenham currently in this scenario have a 6-on-5, which is awful because this is the halfway line. The defensive capabilities and the actual communication to try and stop a chance from happening is non-existent in this Manchester United side, and something needs to change. This is a top-down view just indicating to you how ridiculous this defensive setup actually is. This is Mason Mount running back towards his own goal. Here's Casemiro. There he is. And here is the Manchester United back four, just nowhere near good enough. And as I said, the overloads on certain scenarios for Tottenham in this setup is just far too great. I did a video on Tottenham and how well they dismantled Manchester United the other day, so please go check that out after you've watched this one, of course. Now this one is particularly interesting because it looks as if Manchester United have a decent defensive setup. This is your midfield three covering the ground they're meant to. This is the left winger and this is the left back. But what they don't actually realise is that out here on the right hand side, on the far right hand side, is Kulusevski, and this is actually the build up to the goal. There isn't enough communication to Alejandro Garnacho to have him go out there. There isn't enough communication from Luke Shaw, and there's too much distance for him to go cover, which is why the wide wing play from Tottenham actually worked out very, very well. Manchester United came inside to deal with the fullbacks coming inside. Here is one of the attacking midfielders. Here is Basuma. But the wing-backs or the full-backs coming into midfield really did play a part in the way that Manchester United set up defensively. Shaw was pushed in and tucked in so that he didn't get the inkling to be able to go out and try to engage one of the wide players. But in the end, one of the wide players being so far out is actually one of the reasons why Manchester United end up conceding. This is one of the final ones that I'll show you, but I just found it a little bit funny to watch. This is Tottenham attacking. Obviously, they're going this way. Manchester United are defending. And look at what Tottenham have done to this United side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have a back six currently. A back six. Casemiro is some kind of strange right back. Wan-Bissaka is a centre back now. Mason Mount is a centre defensive midfielder. And Garnacho is another centre defensive midfielder. Now I understand that you can move over and you can pick up positions, but the actual formation of this side is horrendous. Genuinely. This is currently a 6-3. with Rashford probably up top somewhere. This is appalling, genuinely. Something needs to happen, something needs to change, else Manchester United will be in the bottom half of the table come next season. And last but not least, this is a prime example of communication, of not being patient and not shepherding players towards where you want them to be. This is Manchester United's back four. They're actually set up quite well. I think Shaw is covering the run quite well as well. Garnacho has come inside because of Pedro Porro right here. He wants to cover that run, and also Kulusevski has come in deep as well. But what's the most crucial thing is Casemiro here diving in on Basuma, who just makes a little jink towards the other side, and all of a sudden your central defensive midfielder is gone, out of the game, finished, finito, completely dead, and that allows him to drive into the heart of the Manchester United defence. Some serious questions need to be asked of the defensive capabilities of this midfield, of the setup, of the awareness, and just the general desire to stay on your feet and understand the scenario and the situation that you're currently in. Casemiro is a very bright and clever player, and he's extremely experienced, winning multiple Champions Leagues in one of the best sides in Europe that we have ever seen. And to do things like this is just not good enough. Couple that with the lack of communication and the lack of awareness and desire to try and create a setup that becomes difficult to break down through the work rate that is required. And Manchester United just look a complete and utter shambles. And as I said at the start of this video, the worst defending side in the Premier League so far. Let me know what you think about Manchester United and how would you go about fixing them. If you'd like me to do a video on how I believe Manchester United should be fixed, then please let me know in the comment section below. That is it for today. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.